Hey everybody, this is Donna Weir again. I wanted just to continue with the videos. I had promised yesterday that I would be back on, but unfortunately I had some stuff that came up and I was unable to do so. So here I am again at midnight, uh, doing another video because generally this is the quietest time of my day. So I don't know about anybody else, but finally everybody has gone to bed and I can kind of sit and actually think about what I want to talk about. But I did have some people ask me today, or actually it was yesterday on my Facebook page, about thyroid disease and how did I get diagnosed back 2 years ago. What happened is I caught a stomach virus, and I think I talked about this in the book that I wrote. But I caught a stomach virus. That actually went through my house. My entire house had it before I ever got it, but everybody seemed to get over it within a few days. I ended up catching it after everybody else, but I held on to it for 11 days. So I was pretty sick and finally broke down and went to my doctor, and I told him, I said, listen, something's going on and this is not the normal sick me. I mean, I'm usually nauseated and sick anyway, but this obviously there's something more going on here. And luckily he recognized that no, probably it's not normal for me to have this kind of stomach issues this long and this severe. So he had told me, he said, hey, you know what, let's run some blood tests and see what's going on. I'm going to check your thyroid and we'll check that and see if maybe, we'll see what's happening there. At the time, I didn't even know what a thyroid was. A few days later, I get a call. The doctor wants me to come in. I come in. He tells me that I have what they call hyperthyroidism, which I find out is called, another word for it is called Graves' disease. And at that time, he wanted to run another blood panel to check, because at that time it was my TSH that he checked, and it was very low. So he wanted to run what he called a free T4 and a free T3 to see what those were. Again, I didn't know what any of this was, and I was like looking at him like he had three heads when he was trying to tell me exactly what was going on. So when you first get diagnosed with thyroid disease, at that time, I mean, like I said, I'd never heard of it. I didn't even know what a thyroid was. So I'm just going to give you a really quick, hopefully brief, idea of what thyroid disease is and how it comes about, and hopefully give you some information on what you need to do as far as being proactive with yourself and hopefully get diagnosed and get treatment as quickly as possible if you feel that you do have thyroid disease. First of all, your thyroid is actually located right here. And for men, it's behind the Adam's apple, I believe. But women, it's just literally right here. And as you maybe can see, mine is gone. I actually had to have mine removed a few years ago. And it's just two small glands that are in there, and when they are not functioning right, they will wreak tremendous havoc on your body. And what I mean by that is you will have a myriad of crazy symptoms. You can gain weight, you can lose weight, you can feel like you want to sleep all the time, or you can feel like you can never sleep because you have insomnia, which I mean, there's just so much that these two tiny little glands, actually, the hormones in those that regulate, they're your regulator for your body, metabolism, everything. So, and like I said, at that time, I didn't even know what a thyroid was. So I had no idea that these two little glands had that much control over my body, but they do, and they have. Many people have been over the years haven't been diagnosed right with thyroid disease. Many people have been going to their doctor for many years, didn't know, and have tests run. Doctor looks at them and says they're fine. It's just all in their head, whatever, Anyway, luckily, it's finally catching on here in the last year or so. I've noticed that more and more doctors are coming into play, and actually now checking people's thyroids and actually going by the standards that's been, that's out there now for the thyroid measurements and stuff. So that's a good thing. But we have had, it seems like, a slew of people just in my area here in East Tennessee that has been diagnosed with thyroid disease. It's almost like an epidemic in high proportions. Because since I've had this disease, I have run into so many people who have also been diagnosed with it and who are just like, I don't know what to do. Your hormones are crazy. It's not just a woman's disease, by the way, guys. It is a man's disease as well. Men suffer with hyper or hypothyroidism just like women do. A lot of their symptoms maybe aren't as severe, but then but then again they still have serious issues with it. So going undiagnosed with a thyroid disease is just something that in today's time shouldn't be happening. So if you are going to the doctor and you are having problems and your doctor is not listening, and he or maybe you should just bring it up. Hey, why don't you run a test on my thyroid to see if it's working properly? That's, especially if you've been feeling bad for a very long time, you really need to have that checked. Now, again, what thyroid disease is like what I was talking about before. It's just two tiny little glands here that can wreak havoc on your body if your immune system decides to attack it. And what I mean by that, which we went back from the previous video, it has a lot to do with genetics. It has a lot to do with stress. It has a lot to do with your digestive system, and it has a lot to do with environmental triggers. In my case, what happened was that I have a series of digestive issues that I had for over 15 years. I took antacids to control the acid reflux and the ulcers and that kind of thing. I had my gallbladder removed. That didn't help, by the way. And as the years went on, stress building up, finally my barrel just kind of overflowed. And so my immune system started going after my thyroid. I'll tell you how that really, actually, the trigger that finally sent me to the doctor with it was my family had come down with a stomach virus. And the whole house ended up with it. They had it for a couple of days, and they were done and it was done and over. And of course, I catch it last, and I had it for 11 straight days. So when I went to my doctor, and I told him, I said, "Listen, this is not normal for me. I mean, yeah, I have stomach issues, and yes, I do have nausea, but 11 days of an actual stomach virus is a little bit much." So he's an OD doctor, great doctor, and he ended up telling me he was going to run some blood work on me and check my thyroid. Again, at that time when he said that, he talked Greek. I didn't know what he was talking about. Called me a few days later. Of course, I had thyroid disease. I had Graves' disease, actually, or hyperthyroidism, meaning my thyroid was supposedly overproducing hormones at the time. Man, and of course, I didn't realize, it didn't make much sense to me whenever he explained it to me, because supposedly with Graves' disease, you should be losing a tremendous amount of weight, which I wasn't. At the time, I'd actually put on like 12 pounds, which was not normal for me. Despite the fact that I wasn't eating anything, I was constantly nauseated. I was constantly sick at my stomach. But anyway, long story short, he did some more blood work on me, sent me to an endocrinologist, and she, of course, did some blood work herself, and decided to put me on with the treatment plan, which was a methimazole. And And there, as far as I know, with Graves' disease, there's only 2 different drugs that you can use, and one of them is methimazole. Now, at the time, she started me on a really low dose because I really did not want to gain a bunch of weight anymore. I was already putting on weight like crazy, so I thought, well, I don't want to put on any more weight. So she put me on a low dose, but honestly, from that point, I mean, every dose that we upped over the months ahead, the sicker I got, and the more weight I put on. And I will say this, the endocrinologist was as sweet as she could be, but she certainly did not run the tests that she should have ran. She did not check, you know, she didn't do an ultrasound in my thyroid. She did not look at, she didn't even do an antibody test to see, you know, if I possibly had something else going on, such as Hashimoto's. She didn't do a lot of things. So that endocrinologist, knowing now if I knew now what I knew then, it would have never gone to her. Okay, so back to hyperthyroidism. If you are diagnosed with hyperthyroidism, generally your TSH is what they run first, which is the first blood test that they'll run, and it's going to be low. It's actually going to be below the 0.04, I think, is what it is. Don't quote me on that, because in some labs it's different. But if your TSH is low, then they will consider you to be hyperthyroid or have Graves' disease. Now, they also should be running a free T3 and a free T4. These are all your T cells, and these are your hormones, and this tells that picture of how, you know, those hormones from your thyroid are working for you in your body. So typically with Graves' disease, your T4 levels are going to be low, but you're going to have high T3 levels, meaning that T3 is what makes you lose weight. That's your kind of like your metabolism, and that makes you lose weight. Well, in my case, my T4 was low, but so was my T3, which should have been an indicator to my endocrinologist that maybe something else too was going on, and I didn't exactly have just Graves' disease. But after several uppage of dosages on the methimazole, I finally ended up going to a different doctor, because my problem is I could not function at all. It had gotten to the point to where I hadn't slept in weeks. I was so nauseated 24/7. I could not eat anything. I couldn't drink hardly anything. I had to sit straight up in a chair, and I was taking so much nausea medication that it's a wonder I'm even alive today. I mean, taking so much just to try to stop the nausea that was going on from this disease. So for me, my major symptoms was severe nausea and insomnia. I did not sleep. When I did finally get to, you know, another doctor, actually, he told me that, you know, the only thing, you know, he did a scope, he checked my stomach. My stomach was actually in pretty good shape. It was inflamed, but I didn't have any ulcers, so the only thing that he could think of was that it was actually my thyroid that was wreaking havoc on my stomach and causing all the inflammation in my body. And so he felt that I needed to have it removed, and let's see if that would help. Well, so we had it removed, and yes, I did feel better for about a week after. I actually had no stomach problems, and I was feeling wonderful. Of course, when you have your thyroid removed, it puts you what they call into a eurothyroid state, meaning basically you're going to be hypothyroid from there on out. Now, hypothyroid also has its own myriad of wonderful symptoms. That includes your hair will fall out, your eyebrows you lose half of your eyebrows, you want to sleep all the time, you gain a tremendous amount of weight, or for me it was a tremendous amount of weight. You really don't feel like doing anything. The depression sets in. You feel like there's just no end to it in sight. gosh, I'm trying to think of everything. And of course, the nausea came back as well. So that was a real, kick in the gut pretty much for me. But the myriad of symptoms that go along with hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism is just a full range. I mean, like I said, your thyroid can wreak havoc on every part of your body. So from your brain to your toes. I mean, I really don't know how to describe it any other way. There's no just one set of symptoms, and there's just no one set of things that that tells that, oh, well, you've got hypo or you've got hyperthyroid. They're just not, because you can have over 100 different symptoms, and and it'd be your thyroid, pretty much. Also, with hypothyroidism, the doctor will run a TSH test just like they do with Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism, and if your TSH is high, then they consider it to be, or higher than the normal range of the lab, then you are considered to have hypothyroidism. And of course, again, they're going to run the T3 and the T4 test and see where you are there. And then what they will do is they will put you on another myriad of different drugs, and which they're very few and far between. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of good drugs for thyroid disease. But however, for hypothyroidism, the drugs of choice, it seems, for most doctors is Synthroid or levothyroxine, which is a synthetic form of thyroid medicine. I'm not a big proponent of either one of those drugs. I did take both of those drugs. They did not work well at all for my body, and the reason being is because, number one, they are a synthetic thyroid, and number two, they only have the T4 component, and your body, hormone-wise, needs T4 and T3, or at least most people's do. So, Synthroid and levothyroxine is just, for me, it didn't work. I still suffered with severe nausea. I still suffered with, all of the symptoms that I was having before. Nothing changed. And oh, by the way, brain fog is another one. Where you feel like you're basically losing your mind or you just can't remember anything. There's just, for me, those drugs didn't work. So what I did go through and try to find another doctor, and where I ended up at was what we call a functional medicine a doctor who's actually an MD, who finds the cause of your diseases, whether it's thyroid disease or whatever disease it is. Autoimmune wise, these doctors actually try to find the cause of the disease. They don't just throw a pill at you, to treat your symptoms like endocrinologists do. This doctor did run a wide panel, a test on me, and what he found was that I had Hashimoto's, not hypothyroidism, not Graves' disease. I had both sides of the coin. Hashimoto's is both sides of the coin. You do have symptoms of hypo and hyperthyroid symptoms with Hashimoto's disease. The test he ran, which some of the endocrinologists, the other ones should have ran, and the other doctors, and they never did, was what they call a TPO-AB test. I wished so much that I could have had this test done before I had my thyroid removed, because it explained a lot. But unfortunately, that bell can't be unrung. So I don't know why doctors, especially here in my area, don't run a TPO-AB test as the first line of defense when it comes to thyroid disease. I can't answer that question, but I will tell you, if you have thyroid disease, or if you suspect you do, that test there, that one test, thyroid disease cannot hide from. It can hide from the TSH levels, and it can hide from the T3 and T4. And you can go undiagnosed with thyroid disease for many years before they finally figure it out. Luckily, that is kind of changing now. Most mainstream doctors are coming on board, and they are running the TPO-AB test, but many of them aren't. And if your doctor has not run that test on you and you suspect that you have thyroid disease, but he's done all the other ones, then you need to demand that he runs the TPO-AB. Because again, thyroid disease cannot hide from that test. That tells you whether or not you have a thyroid disease. Now, again, with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it is it's your immune system. Basically, it's attacking your thyroid. It thinks it's a virus or a bacterial infection, and your body is building up antibodies against your thyroid, just like you would build up antibodies against the flu, or you would build up antibodies against a particular stomach virus. That's how you have to kind of look at it. Your immune system thinks your thyroid is a virus, okay? So you're building antibodies against your own body organ. And how you turn that off is still something that's being researched and a mystery. All I can tell you is that right now, you just need to try to find the best treatment that you can for your disease, and you need to make sure that you have a complete blood panel done. And when I mean complete, I mean from everything from vitamin D, calcium, B vitamins. You want every vitamin, mineral, everything checked that you can possibly get checked on blood work. And if you can afford to, you want to get a stool analysis done. You want to also check for food allergies as well. The reason why I would go to a functional medicine doctor is because those type of tests are the ones that they're going to run. If you go to an endocrinologist, they're not going to run those alternative tests. Again, endocrinologists are not there to find the cause. They're there to just treat your symptoms. That's it. So if you go to an endocrinologist, just understand they're only gonna try to treat your symptoms. They're not gonna try to help maybe reverse your thyroid disease. So before you have your thyroid removed, I would definitely at least seek a OD doctor or a functional medicine doctor and see if there's maybe something else that you can do to possibly reverse your thyroid disease by taking care of your gut and your stress levels. It's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if I had it to do over, that's what I would have done. Getting back to the thyroid disease itself, let's say you are diagnosed with either Hashimoto's, Graves, or hypothyroidism. There's a myriad of different supplements that you should look into taking. Number one on the list is probiotics. And what I mean by probiotics is not the stuff that you buy over the counter at CVS drugstore. It's not the kind that you can just get at Walmart. You really need to invest, because this is your stomach we're talking about. It's what it's for. It's to put the good bacteria back into your stomach that you do not have anymore. And you need to get the kind that's refrigerated. And generally you can only get those in an organic or someplace like a natural type health food store. And you want the refrigerated kind, and you want the kind that does not have any yeast, any soy, any gluten, and it's just strictly live cultured pro and prebiotic type supplement. You want to start taking that as soon as possible. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to do anything at all except start helping get your gut back in order. The other thing, supplement-wise, that I would recommend is what they call apple cider vinegar. I buy the Bragg's, Braggs, unpasteurized version. I take 2 teaspoons of that with water, definitely with something has to be diluted a day, and that also is a fabulous it helps lower inflammation in your gut and in your entire body, and it just also cuts sugar intake down as well. If you're getting sugar and carbs and such as that throughout the day, then that's something that helps with lowering those sugar levels a little bit, which is really something that you need to look at too, is eliminating a lot of your sugar intake. When you have a thyroid disease, typically You also have a gluten allergy. If you don't, I would say that at least 99% of the people that have thyroid disease are gluten intolerant. And gluten doesn't necessarily mean that you have stomach issues. Gluten can be inflammation in any part of your body. Gluten can cause inflammation in any part of your body. And if you have a thyroid disease, then your stomach is leaking. And if your stomach is leaking out particles into your bloodstream, then it's probably leaking out that wheat, that rye, that barley, that nice floured sausage biscuit stuff that you're eating on a daily basis. Gluten is a big proponent when it comes to thyroid disease. That pretty much goes hand in hand. So you need to eliminate gluten from your diet first and foremost. Implement a good probiotic and a prebiotic. Also implement some apple cider vinegar. After you have your blood panel done and your doctor checks you, your vitamin levels, usually D is one of the low ones. For some people it's not, but for me, my vitamin D levels were extremely low. And so I started having to take 30,000 IUs of vitamin D3 a day. Also, my calcium levels were extremely low. So I had to start taking over 1,800 milligrams of calcium a day. Now, those two alone are excellent sources for reducing inflammation in the body, helping your thyroid kind of get back in shape. But also, they're great for your immune system. Period. So there's nothing wrong with taking vitamin D and calcium. Maybe not in that kind of high dosage, but don't buy the kind that's over the counter at CVS. Make sure you look at the ingredient list. Check it. Make sure it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup and all these different ingredients. You want what's actually truly vitamin D3 and what's truly calcium. You don't want all that extra stuff because it really doesn't do you any good. I mean, if you're taking a vitamin supplement, what do they need to put sugar and gluten in it for? So, I personally go to a homeopathic or herbal store in order to buy all of my vitamins. Let's see. Also, if you are diagnosed with a thyroid disease, like I said, there's a myriad of different. Not a myriad of different. There's only a few. On the hyper or hypo side as far as the drugs go to help you with your symptoms. Some people like the Thyroid, but again it only has the T4 in it, so it doesn't do much for a lot of people as far as losing weight is concerned. Some people like the levothyroxine. For me it didn't work out. Again, it just didn't make me feel better as a whole. So I ended up going to what they call a natural desiccated thyroid medication, which was called Armour Thyroid. And what that has in it is a T4 and a T3, and it does come from pigs. It's a bovine desiccated thyroid medication. For me, it was the quickest, fastest way for me to get to feeling better and to get my thyroid levels back in check. They also make another one called Nature Thyroid that's out there too that does basically the same thing as Armour. So, you have to decide for yourself what is best for you, and nobody's body is the same. So what may work for me may not work for you. I have had to learn this because I've given advice over the last year, Armour's this and you should go to Armour. For some people, they didn't feel better on Armour, Thyroid they did, but for many people they need that T4 and they need that T3, and you can't get that with Thyroid and levothyroxine. So you just need to make sure that if you're still feeling like crap after 6 weeks of being on your thyroid medicine, you need to go back to your doctor, have it retested again, and you need to have it reevaluated, and you need to make sure that your medicine is working for you. And if your doctor says, oh well, your levels are fine, so you must be fine. Well, guess what? If you still feel like crap and your symptoms are still going on, then it doesn't really matter what your numbers say. it's how you feel. So keep that in mind when you are choosing a doctor or talking to a doctor. A lot of times they look at that blood work and they're like, oh, you should be fine because your levels are great, but yet you're still sick. And if that's the case, and he's not listening to you, then you need, or she's not listening to you, then go find a doctor that will. These are all my opinions. I'm not a doctor. I'm just giving you basically my struggle with it for the last, year and a half, and finally getting someone who actually cared and wanted to truly help me, get better. Also, some different supplements that you could try if you are, and you need to always talk to your doctor when you're doing any supplements, of course. But psyllium is an excellent supplement for thyroid disease, especially hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. A lot of people lack that. And when you've been on thyroid medicine for a while, your blood work's going to kind of start showing up, whether or not you're anemic and whether you're alert or you're low on psyllium and iodine and that kind of stuff. So it's going to kind of pull out, some different things that you would be surprised about, actually, that wouldn't normally show up in a regular blood work. So just keep that in mind. That there's also iodine that you can try. But be sure, whatever you do, if you're going to do the psyllium or the iodine, you talk to your doctor before you do that. You want to make sure that you are that you don't have, or you're insufficient in iodine or psyllium before you take those two types of supplements. Again, I guess I've kind of gone over my 30 minutes, but I wanted to make sure I covered everything. I hope I did. I hope I answered several of your questions, or at least gave you an idea of what to do and where to go. Just make sure that when you talk to your doctor, if you think you have a thyroid disease or you have a thyroid problem, if you're experiencing symptoms of thyroid disease, make sure they run a TPO AB test. Tell them that's what you want. That, like I said, that particular test alone, the thyroid disease cannot hide from. So just understand that TSH number and those T3 and T4 numbers are not the last resort when it comes to thyroid disease, or whether or not you have it or not. So don't go undiagnosed. Make sure that you follow it to the end, and your doctor is testing you thoroughly. And again, if your doctor doesn't want to do those kinds of tests, then you need to find someone who will. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. I hope this helps out a little bit. Also, if you want to hear more from me, you can always join the Facebook page, Autoimmune Disorders, and it's of course under me. It's Donna Weir. So you can always find me there. I'll be happy to try to help out. I do have several friends that are all going through the same thing as what we are, and we all try to help out and support each other. Again, I am not a doctor. I hope you understand that. I am just giving you my opinion, basically what I have been through as far as researching for myself, testings, and that kind of thing, and what's worked and what's not worked for me. So that doesn't mean that it won't work and not work for you. So you have to, unfortunately, it's a time-consuming situation that you're in if you have thyroid disease. And typically, for me, it took me at least a year and a half to finally get straightened out. But again, I hope I didn't bore you to death and keep you too long. But if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to add anything to it, please comment and let me know what you think. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I will be talking to you soon. Thanks. Have a good night. Thanks for listening.